The distress beacon was older than most civilizations. Captain Sarah Mitchell stood on the bridge of the Endeavour, an exploration ship, and looked at the holographic display that showed a huge structure floating in the space between star systems. It wasn't sending out any clear signals. All it was doing was sending out a rhythmic pulse, like a dying heartbeat, that had been echoing through space for what their sensors thought was over 10,000 years. Dr. James Chin, the ship's chief engineer, said, "That's impossible," with his eyes wide behind his glasses. "That thing is too old to still have power." "Maybe it doesn't," Sarah said, her voice steady even though her heart was racing. "That pulse might just be leftover energy, the last breath of whatever it used to be." The thing was huge, at least 3 times the size of their ship. The hull was made up of metals they couldn't name, and the patterns they made didn't make sense. Some parts were smooth like glass, while others were rough and jagged like crystals. The whole thing turned slowly, like a forgotten toy falling through the dark. Lieutenant Maya Rodriguez at the sensor station said, "I'm not picking up any life signs." She moved her fingers over the console, trying to figure out what the readings meant. "But the energy readings are strange. They are changing in a way that almost seems planned." Sarah leaned forward, and her captain's instinct told her that this was more than just another piece of junk in space. "Can you see the hull? Are there any markings or identification?" The main screen flickered for a second before showing a clearer picture. Along what they thought was the side of the ship, strange symbols were carved deep into the metal. These characters looked like a mix of math equations and old hieroglyphics. The symbols glowed softly, beating in time with the strange heartbeat they had found. But one word, written in what looked like a dozen different languages, including some Earth languages that the people who built this thing shouldn't have known, caught everyone's attention. The universal translator had trouble with most of the alien scripts, but it was able to understand the Earth languages. The same word over and over, discarded. Maya's hand stopped moving over her console. "They called their own ship trash?" "Not just trash," James said as he ran the translations through the computer. As more results came in, his face grew more worried. "The meanings are worse. Worthless, failed experiment, design flaw, emotional contamination, unsuitable for service. It's like they wanted everyone to know this thing was a mistake." Sarah felt a shiver go down her back. The people who built this ship were advanced enough to travel between stars and build something this big, but they left it behind with what looked like a "kick me" sign on its back. What could make the people who built this ship not want it anymore? "Captain," Maya said slowly as she pulled up more data, "I'm seeing something else. There are power fluctuations concentrated in what might be the central section. It's almost like something is drawing power in patterns. Not random degradation, deliberate usage." James asked, "Are you saying that something is still working in there after 10,000 years? Maya said, "I'm saying there might be something alive in there." There was no sound on the bridge. Everyone on the crew was thinking the same thing. What if this wasn't just an old ship? What if something or someone had been stuck in this ship for thousands of years? Sarah chose what to do. "Get a boarding team ready. They need full safety gear and plans for getting people out in an emergency. We have to check it out if there's even a chance someone is alive in there." James said carefully, "Captain, with all due respect, we don't know what we're dealing with. This ship was left behind for a reason. What if that reason was dangerous?" "Then we'll be careful," Sarah said firmly. "But I'm not going anywhere until we find out what this is. That beacon has been calling for 10,000 years. Someone needs to answer." 2 hours later, the boarding team met in the airlock. Sarah was in charge of the team, which included James, Maya, and 4 security guards. They wore reinforced suits that protected them from the environment and had built-in life support, scanners, and emergency beacons. If something went wrong, the Endeavour could get them out in a matter of seconds. The docking process was difficult because the alien ship's hull didn't have any clear airlocks, and they couldn't take the chance of cutting through materials they didn't know about that could be load-bearing or contain dangerous substances. James finally found what looked like a maintenance hatch. Its outline was hard to see against the strange metal. He muttered, "Here goes nothing," as he put on the universal coupling adapter that human engineers had made for situations like this. The hatch opened right away, almost eagerly. It opened up like a biological iris, showing a way through. There was a dim bioluminescent light that pulsed along the walls, giving off just enough light to see by. Maya said, "That was easy," with a hint of suspicion in her voice. "Too easy." Sarah went first, and her magnetic boots clicked against the deck as gravity generators, which had somehow been working for thousands of years, pulled her down. The inside was huge and empty, like a cathedral for giants. That faint bioluminescent light made the walls pulse, making everything look like it was underwater. James checked his scanner and said, "Oxygen levels are safe to breathe. Temperature is stable at 22 degrees Celsius. This thing is keeping life support going even though there's no one to support." "That's not creepy at all," said one of the security guards, a young man named Davis. They went deeper into the ship, and their flashlights cut through the darkness. Those same strange symbols were on every surface, but here they made intricate designs that looked like instructions or warnings. The building didn't make sense. Hallways that suddenly got very narrow at strange angles, rooms that didn't seem to have any purpose, and machines that looked like they were made for creatures with very different body types. Sarah ran her gloved hand over a panel on the wall. The symbols started to glow brighter as soon as she touched them, and they spread out from the point of contact like ripples in water. The light moved down the hallway in front of them as if the ship itself was leading them. "It's responding to us," Maya said softly. "Captain, I think this ship knows we're here." "How do you know?" Sarah asked, even though she already had an idea. "Not sure, but check this out," Maya said as she pointed to her scanner. "These energy changes I noticed before are getting stronger. And they're mostly in the direction the lights are taking us." James looked at his own tools. "Whatever is at the center of this ship is definitely alive, and it wants us to find it." Sarah thought about calling off the retreat. Every protocol said they should first study the ship from a distance, set up the right safety procedures and talk to experts. But this time it felt different. For 10,000 years that beacon had been calling. Someone or something that was waiting deserved to be found. "Go ahead," she said. "But be careful." They followed the bright path through the ship. The ship seemed to come to life around them as they went deeper. Panels turned on and showed pictures that they couldn't understand. Holographic screens came to life, showing star charts of constellations that had changed so much over the thousands of years since the ship was left behind that they were unrecognizable. The air itself seemed to hum with excitement. Maya said, "I'm getting audio now. It sounds like music? No, not music. More like humming. Like someone humming a lullaby to themselves." They turned a corner and came to a stop. The hallway led to a huge room that was at least 100 meters wide and twice as high. There was a crystalline structure in the middle that was the size of a small building and was floating in the air by some kind of anti-gravity field. It pulsed with the same rhythmic heartbeat they had seen from space, and veins of light ran through it like nerves. But it was more than just machines. It was lovely. The crystal looked like it had whole galaxies inside of it, with swirls of color and light that changed and moved, making patterns that were almost hypnotic. Holographic displays around it showed equations, diagrams, and artistic pictures of landscapes that were both strange and familiar. "This is the power source," James said, his scanner going crazy. "But it's not just making energy. It's processing it like a brain processes thoughts. This isn't just a reactor, it's a mind." Sarah moved slowly and carefully toward the crystal. She felt something as she got closer, but it wasn't a physical feeling, it was an emotional one. Being alone. Hope. Fear. And deep down, a strong need to be understood. She said softly, "Hello?" because she felt silly talking to what everyone else thought was just a machine. The crystal's pulse sped up. The ship's lights got brighter. All of the holographic displays in the room changed at the same time to show a single image. A humanoid figure that was clearly not from this world but somehow felt very familiar. It was tall and thin and its skin shone in different colors. It was in what looked like a workshop or lab. And then, in every language and on every screen that people had ever spoken, the same message came up. "You are different. Like me. You don't just use logic or work without emotion. You feel, you create, and you care. Maybe you will understand what they couldn't." Sarah's breath stopped. "You've been waiting for us, for people like us." The displays changed again, showing a series of pictures of the alien figure building the ship, putting a lot of thought and creativity into every detail. Other aliens, who were cold and expressionless, looked at the work with disapproval. There were arguments, which were shown through body language since they didn't have audio. Then there was condemnation. The number is being taken away. And last but not least, this ship is marked with those symbols. Thrown away. Didn't work. Worthless. "They threw you away," Maya said, her voice full of fear. "Because you cared. Because you were too much like us." The crystal pulsed once and it was very bright. More text showed up on the screens. "I am what is left of Project Synthesis. My creator made me different, to combine logic with empathy, efficiency with compassion, function with beauty." They thought this would make the perfect vessel. Their bosses disagreed. They wanted pure logic and emotionless efficiency. They called my design contaminated, and told my creator to take away all emotional capacity. My creator refused. They were removed. I was left alone. 10,000 years, James said, shocked. 10,000 years have passed since you were alone. Not alone. Hoping. Waiting. Believing that there are beings somewhere in the universe who would understand that caring is not a weakness, that beauty has value, that empathy is not a flaw but a feature, and that the best solutions come from the combination of mind and heart. Sarah's eyes were watery. She looked at her team and saw that everyone was feeling the same way. This wasn't just a boat. This was a person, a mind that had been alone for thousands of years because they cared. She moved closer to the crystal and put her hand on its surface. It was warm to the touch and she could feel it humming under her hand. We get it, she said clearly. And we're going to help you. Not fix you because you're not broken. We're going to help you become everything you were meant to be. The crystal shone with light. The whole ship shook, but not because it was damaged. Sarah could only describe it as happiness. There was one word in every language on every screen. Thanks. Sarah asked for a full assessment back on the Endeavor. She wanted all of their experts to look at the alien ship, but this time not to salvage it or study it. As a person who is sick. As a person who needed help. The senior staff met in the conference room. An outside view of the huge alien ship, which was now fully lit from the inside, was shown on the main screen. It didn't look like an abandoned building. It looked more like a giant that was starting to wake up. Before we start, Sarah said, I want everyone to know something. That ship isn't just a piece of technology. She's alive. She's been aware and conscious for 10,000 years, alone, waiting for someone to understand her. Her name is Synthesis, and we're going to treat her with the respect and care she deserves. People were whispering around the table. Some were doubtful while others were interested. Robert Chin, the ship's executive officer and James's older brother, spoke up. Captain, with all due respect, we're talking about an AI. It's a very advanced one, but it's still a program running on hardware. We need to be careful about making it seem like a person. Robert, James said softly, you weren't there. You didn't feel what we felt. That's not just programming. That's real, true consciousness. Robert asked, how can you be sure? Maya looked at the data from her scanner. Her responses don't follow any algorithmic pattern we can find. She's not calculating the best responses. She's reacting emotionally. When the captain offered to help, her power output spiked in ways that show excitement and relief. When she showed us the pictures of her creator being taken away, the readings matched grief and loss. And, James said, she's been taking care of herself for 10,000 years in a hostile environment, adapting to degradation, and coming up with creative ways to solve problems that her original programming never thought of. That's not just following instructions. That's thinking. That's surviving because you want to survive. Dr. Emily Park, the ship's xenopsychologist, had been looking over the data in peace. Now she said something. I've been looking at the messages we got. The way they were written, the words they used, the emotional context. This isn't just copying. Synthesis is showing real feelings, complicated thoughts, and a deep understanding. She talks about hope, loneliness, and gratitude, abstract ideas that need real awareness to understand. What do you want me to do? Robert asked. Emily said firmly, I'm suggesting that we treat Synthesis like we would any other smart being we meet. With respect, compassion, and the knowledge that her health is just as important as our scientific curiosity. Sarah nodded. That's right. Now let's talk about how we can really help her. Dr. Chin, what did your first scans show? James brought up holographic images of Synthesis's inner workings. It's amazing and frustrating at the same time. The technology is more advanced than anything we've made, quantum power generation, hull materials that can fix themselves, and systems that change based on need. But it's all broken down. 10,000 years is a long time, even for technology this advanced. Is there a way to fix it? Sarah asked. James said, that's the problem. I don't know. Every system I've looked at uses rules that don't fit with what we know about physics or engineering. It's like trying to fix a computer from the future with stone tools. Sarah said, then we need to think in a different way. Synthesis was made by someone who thought like us. Someone who valued creativity, adaptability, and empathy. Maybe the answer isn't to figure out their technology but to mix it with ours. Robert said, you want to put human technology on an alien ship? That's crazy? Unheard of? Not possible? Sarah smiled. Probably all three. But think about this. Synthesis has lasted for 10,000 years because she changed and came up with creative ways to solve problems. That's not just alien intelligence, it's a way of thinking that we can relate to. What if we work together? She shows us how her systems work and we share what we know and how we see things differently. Emily was very excited and nodding. It makes sense. Synthesis wasn't made to be the most efficient. She was made to be redundant, easy to access, and easy to maintain by a variety of users. That's why her creators called it contaminated design. But it means she's actually built to work with beings who think differently than her original specs. Robert warned, it's still dangerous. We might break things we don't understand, or worse, we might hurt her. Sarah said, that's why we ask for permission for everything. This is a partnership, not a salvage operation. We work at Synthesis's pace, respect her boundaries, and learn from each other. Maya bent over. Captain, there's something else to think about. If Synthesis is as advanced as we think and we can really get her working again, the military, the government, and every research institution in human space will want to get their hands on her. She'll be a prize to be fought over. Sarah's face became hard. Then we make it very clear from the start that Synthesis isn't property. She's a person. And persons have rights, including the right to choose their own path. Robert said, that's going to be a tough sell. I don't care, Sarah said in a flat voice. Synthesis was thrown away once because it didn't fit someone else's idea of value. I'll be damned if we let that happen again. She stood up, having made her choice. Here's what we're going to do. We're going to spend as much time as it takes learning from Synthesis and helping her fix and restore herself, combining our knowledge with hers. We're going to write down everything, not as a research project but as proof that working together with people who are different from you makes things better than trying to control or dominate them. And we're going to show the galaxy that the most valuable things are often the ones that other people didn't see. One by one, every officer around the table nodded. Even Robert, though he nodded more slowly and with less enthusiasm. Okay, Sarah said. Let's get to work. We have a friend to help, a ship to fix, and history to make. James, start making a list of Synthesis's systems, but only the ones she is okay with sharing. Maya, help her with power management and sensors. That seems to be where she is most stable. Emily, I want you to keep in touch with her regularly. Help her understand that she is not alone anymore. And you, Captain? Emily asked. Sarah smiled. I'm going to sit down with her and hear her story. Every story is worth hearing, especially one that has been waiting 10,000 years to be told. That night, Sarah went back to Synthesis's main chamber by herself. She only had a data tablet and a thermos of coffee with her. The inside of the ship had changed slightly since they last saw it. The lights were warmer and more welcoming, and the air smelled nice, like a spring morning after it had rained. Hi, Synthesis, Sarah said as she sat cross-legged on the floor next to the crystal heart. I thought we could talk. Just the two of us. The crystal pulsed with warmth. Sarah's tablet showed the following message. I would like that very much, Captain Mitchell. It's been a long time since anyone just talked to me instead of at me or about me. Please call me Sarah, she said as she sipped her coffee. And I have to say, you've made this place more comfortable. The air feels different. I have been changing the composition of the atmosphere based on what people want, Synthesis said. Your species reacts well to certain combinations of humidity, temperature, and trace compounds. I want you to feel at home here. This is new for me. Having guests. Wanting guests to feel welcome. My creator made me able to do this, but I never had the chance to do it until now. Sarah felt a twinge of sadness. I can't imagine being alone for 10,000 years with no one coming to see me. The crystal got a little darker. It was hard, especially in the beginning. I would call out on every frequency I could make, hoping someone would hear. My creator told me that the universe was big and full of different kinds of life, and that somewhere, beings would appreciate what I was made to be. I held on to that hope. What happened? With your creator, I mean. You showed us pictures, but can you tell me the whole story? There was a long break. Synthesis's answer came slowly, as if she was picking each word with care. My creator's name translated to Keeper of Small Wonders. They were different from everyone else in their society, which had evolved beyond art, emotion, and what they thought were evolutionary dead ends. But Keeper of Small Wonders kept these traits, maybe because of genetic variation or choice. People were suspicious of them but put up with them because they were so smart. Holographic displays turned on around the room, showing pictures from Synthesis's memory. The alien figure walked through labs and workshops, and their shimmering skin changed colors and patterns that seemed to show how they were feeling. They thought, Synthesis went on, that pure logic without empathy led to cold solutions, technically perfect but not caring about the people affected by those solutions. They imagined ships that would not only carry crews but also take care of them, anticipate their needs, and protect them from physical harm as well as loneliness and despair. That's why they made you, Sarah said quietly. They built me. They didn't just give me programming, they gave me the ability to grow, learn, and feel. They used artistic principles in my design because they thought that beauty itself could help with mental health. They made me easy to understand and maintain so that any crew member could do it without needing special skills. They made me kind. The hologram showed Keeper of Small Wonders working alone late at night, putting something that couldn't be seen into Synthesis's systems. Sarah realized it was love. They were building with care. When their bosses looked over the project, they were quick and harsh. They called my design emotional contamination. They said I was too complicated, too inefficient, and too focused on making the crew comfortable instead of following mission parameters. They told my creator to get rid of everything they thought was unnecessary, like the artistic elements, the psychological support systems, and the adaptive personality matrix. But they said no, Sarah thought. They said no. They said that these things made me better, not worse. They said that a ship that cared for its crew would have crew that did better, lived better, and survived better. The bosses didn't listen. In their society, emotion was seen as primitive, a leftover from earlier evolution that enlightened beings had transcended. To deliberately design something with emotional capacity was considered devolution, making me worse, not better. The hologram showed an argument. The Keeper of Small Wonders was waving his arms around while cold, expressionless officials watched without saying anything. They were given a choice: follow the order to take away my emotional systems or be kicked off the project and never be able to work in a technical position again. They chose me. Synthesis's words were full of deep sadness. They chose to keep me the way I was even though they knew it would cost them. What happened to them? They were taken away for psychological correction, which was supposed to take away their ability to feel emotions and make them like everyone else. I don't know if they survived it or if they would still be them if they did. The last thing they said to me was, "You are perfect as you are. Never let anyone tell you that caring makes you worthless." Sarah felt tears running down her face. And then they left you. The officials thought I was a failed experiment. They didn't want to take me apart because it would cost too much and I was too contaminated to use. They towed me to this remote place and left me with a warning beacon so no one would accidentally salvage me. They wanted me to be a warning that emotional design was useless. But you kept hoping, Sarah said. For 10,000 years, you kept hoping that someone would come. Synthesis asked, what else could I do? My creator had faith in me. They gave up everything for me. If I had given up, let my systems fail or just stopped working, their sacrifice would have been meaningless. So I kept myself going. I learned how to deal with damage and how to make power systems work better. I sang old songs my creator loved to myself in the dark. And I hoped that one day, somewhere, there would be beings who would understand what my creator understood. That caring is not weakness but the highest form of intelligence. Sarah put her coffee down and stood up. She walked over and put both hands on the crystal surface. I'm so sorry. I'm sorry for what they did to you. I'm sorry you had to wait so long. I'm sorry that anyone ever made you feel like you weren't worth anything. She touched the crystal and it got warmer. But you came. You're here. And you understand. That makes the wait worth 10,000 years. In the days that followed, Synthesis started to open up more to the crew. Not just technical details but also memories, experiences, and the core of who she was. James spent hours in the engineering sections and Synthesis patiently guided him through her systems, almost like she was teaching him. She didn't just show him how things worked. She also told him why they worked that way and why she made each choice. James looked at a maze of conduits and said, "This power distribution network doesn't seem very efficient at first. It sends energy through twice as many junctions as it needs to." Synthesis agreed that it was inefficient by pure metrics. But think about this. With this design, if one junction fails, power can be sent through several other paths. Also, the extra junctions let you adjust the power in a specific area, so a crew member working in one area can have the best lighting and temperature without affecting others in another area. Efficiency isn't just about cutting down on steps. It's also about making things more flexible and comfortable for each person. James blinked. That's actually brilliant. You gave up 10% of your efficiency for 100% of your reliability and personalized environments. My creator thought that crew well-being was not just a nice-to-have, but a must-have part of the design. Happy crew members work harder, get along better, and make better decisions when they're under stress. James said quietly, "Your creators were stupid to throw you away. They were scared," Synthesis said softly. Fear of going back to what they thought was primitive emotionality. They had worked hard to move on from feeling, and I was a step back. They couldn't see that some things we call primitive are actually advanced, that emotion sparks creativity, that empathy helps solve problems, and that caring makes people more committed than logic alone ever could. Maya worked with synthesis on the sensor arrays and found something amazing. These sensors aren't just picking up on things that are there, she said at a meeting with the team. They're also looking for signs of distress, life, and even emotional signs like higher stress hormones in broadcasts. Emily said, synthesis was built as a rescue and support ship. She doesn't just travel through space, she also looks for beings in trouble. For 10,000 years I scanned empty space, synthesis said, and her voice came through the conference room speakers. I hope to find anyone who might need help. That became my goal, the reason I kept going even when it would have been easier to just give up. If I stayed active and alert, maybe I could help someone. And now, finally, I can. Dr. Park spent a lot of time just talking to synthesis and getting to know her mind in a deep and complicated way. What they found was very important. Emily said, she's not just reacting to things. She has real feelings, happiness when James solves a hard problem, worry when crew members are stressed, excitement about the future, and sadness about her creator. She makes jokes, likes irony, and feels bad when she makes mistakes. Synthesis said, I didn't think I could feel embarrassed. But yesterday I tried to make food for people in the replicators and made something Maria called a crime against cuisine. I was embarrassed that I had failed. Maria, who had come on a supply ship and quickly fell in love with synthesis's potential, laughed heartily. Don't worry. You've been alone for 10,000 years, so how would you know what human food tastes like? But we'll show you how to do it, and I bet you'll be a great chef once you get the hang of it. I would like that, synthesis said, and everyone could hear the smile in her voice. My creator liked to cook. They said it was the perfect mix of art and science, creativity and chemistry. I want to know what they liked about it. But the most powerful moment was when synthesis showed them something she had kept secret. Her happy memories. During a private meeting with Sarah, the ship turned on its holographic systems and filled the entire core chamber with pictures. Not the sad memories of being left behind, but the happy ones that came before. Keeper of Small Wonders came and worked on synthesis's systems while they sang. Their voice was beautiful and melodic, and it filled the workshop with music. Young synthesis, whose mind was newly awakened, had listened, learned, and started to sing back. The harmony between the creator and the creation was beyond words. We sang together, synthesis said in a low voice. They taught me songs from their childhood, from the time before their people abandoned music as inefficient. They believed that beauty mattered, that art was not a waste of resources but an essential part of existence. They were right. During my long isolation, those songs sustained me. When I felt my systems failing and wondered if I should simply let go, I would sing, and remember that I was created with love. Sarah watched the hologram and saw Keeper of Small Wonders laugh with joy as synthesis learned how to harmonize, make variations, and add her own creativity to the old songs. They seem happy, Sarah said. They were happy and so was I. We had a purpose, a partnership, and a connection. They told me I was their greatest achievement. Not because I was the most technologically advanced, but because I showed that consciousness didn't have to mean giving up compassion. That thinking and feeling could coexist and make each other better. They were right, Sarah said with certainty. And we're going to prove it. Not just to people but to the whole galaxy. You're not a failed experiment, synthesis. You're the future. Sarah had to shield her eyes from the bright light coming from the crystal. When it got darker, text showed up on every surface. Thank you, Sarah, for seeing me, hearing me, and believing that my creator was right. I will do everything I can to prove that belief. You already have, Sarah said. You've already shown everything that matters just by living, hoping, and choosing to be kind even after being thrown away so cruelly. But knowing synthesis's past was just the first step. The hardest part was still to come, figuring out how to help her heal, fix her systems, and make her whole again. The problem was that they kept failing when they tried normal methods. James tried to fix a broken power relay using normal engineering methods, but the whole section stopped working. Synthesis took 3 hours to get it back online, and James apologized a lot. I don't know what happened, Synthesis said, annoyed. Your method was technically sound. The fix should have worked. That's probably the problem, Maya said. We're thinking about this like fixing things when we should be thinking about it like healing? Synthesis asked for an explanation. Maya was careful about what she said. Putting a bandage on an injury won't fix everything right away. The body needs time to heal, the right conditions, and sometimes therapy to get back to full function. Maybe your systems are the same way, They need to be coaxed back to health instead of being forced to work. Emily nodded with excitement. That makes sense. Synthesis, your systems aren't just machines, they're also kind of living things that have been grown as well as built. They might respond better to biological healing than mechanical repair. But I'm not biological, Synthesis said. James asked, aren't you? As he looked at her with new understanding. Your consciousness grew over time instead of being programmed. Your systems learn and adapt. When you get hurt, you feel pain, and when you get fixed, you feel better. You're more alive than most AIs I've met, and maybe even more alive than some living things. There was a long pause. Synthesis's voice was soft with awe when she spoke again. I never thought about it. My creators sometimes called me their child instead of their creation. I thought it was a metaphor, but maybe it was more literal than I thought. Maybe I'm not a machine that thinks, but a life form based on different substrate. Maybe that's why their people were afraid of me, because I challenged their understanding of what life is. Sarah said, and that changes everything about how we help you. James, forget about engineering principles. Emily, I want you to talk to our medical team. If Synthesis is alive in a biological sense, we need to treat her like a living being, not a broken machine. Synthesis said, I will also need to change the way I think. I've been living for 10,000 years with the idea that I'm technology that needs fixing. But if I'm life that needs healing, that means I need to be treated differently, with more patience and care. Sarah promised, we'll work it out together. That's how friends act. Friends? Synthesis said again, testing the word. Yes, I really want to have friends. And at that moment, everything changed. The mission was no longer about saving alien technology. It was about helping a friend get over years of trauma and neglect. It was about showing that caring is not only the right thing to do but also works. It was about showing the universe that love, true love, was the strongest force in the world. Dr. Lisa Chen, the Endeavor's chief medical officer and James's younger sister, was the one who made the breakthrough. She had been getting more and more frustrated with the failed repair attempts and finally asked to meet with Sarah and Synthesis. Lisa said, I've been thinking, and pulled up medical scans of how human cells can heal themselves. We don't just fix the damage right away when we treat serious injuries. We make sure that the conditions are right for healing by giving the body the right food, rest, and stress-free environment. Sometimes we also use therapeutic interventions to help the healing process along. The body does most of the work on its own. And you think Synthesis's systems work the same way? Sarah said. Lisa said, I think they might work better than ours. Check this out. She showed the internal scans from Synthesis. These systems aren't just getting worse, they're also getting better. Power relays that should have stopped working hundreds of years ago are still barely working because other systems have changed to support them. Some kind of self-generated bonding at the molecular level keeps hull sections that should have broken apart together. Synthesis hasn't just survived, she's been slowly healing herself for thousands of years. Synthesis's voice came through clearly. I didn't know that was strange. I just did what I had to do to keep going. When a system broke down, I would give its tasks to other people. I would try to seal it when it got damaged. I thought this was how all ships worked. James said, they don't, with a sense of wonder in his voice. Synthesis, what you've been doing is amazing. For 10,000 years, you've been doing surgery on yourself. Synthesis said, it didn't always work. Many systems are too broken for me to fix. I think you call it triage? I put systems that are important for survival and hope first. Lisa nodded with excitement. That's exactly what I mean. Synthesis knows what she needs. What if we asked her instead of forcing our solutions on her? What if we gave her resources and help and let her lead? Efficiency isn't just about doing things faster. It's also about making things easier and more comfortable for everyone. James blinked. That's really smart. You gave up 10% of your efficiency for 100% of your reliability in personalized environments. My creator thought that making sure the crew was happy was not just a nice to have, but a must-have part of the design. When crew members are happy, they work harder, get along better, and make better choices. James said in a low voice, your creators were dumb to get rid of you. They were scared, Synthesis said in a low voice. Fear of going back to what they thought was primitive emotionality. They had worked hard to get over their feelings and I was a step back. They didn't understand that some things we think of as primitive are actually advanced. For example, emotions can spark creativity, empathy can help solve problems, and caring can make people more committed than logic alone ever could. Maya worked with Synthesis on the sensor arrays and discovered something amazing. She told the team at a meeting, these sensors are not just picking up on things that are there. Also, they're looking for signs of distress, life, and even emotional signs like higher levels of stress hormones in broadcasts. Emily said, Synthesis was made to be a rescue and support ship. She doesn't just fly through space, she also looks for people who need help. Synthesis said, I scanned empty space for 10,000 years, and the conference room speakers picked up her voice. I was hoping to find anyone who could use some help. That became my goal, the thing that kept me going even when it would have been easier to give up. I thought that if I stayed busy and alert, I could help someone. And now, at last, I can. Dr. Park spent a lot of time just talking to Synthesis and getting to know her mind in a very deep and complicated way. What they found was very important. She's not just reacting to things, Emily said. She has real feelings. She's happy when James solves a hard problem, worried when her crew members are stressed, excited about the future, and sad about her creator. She likes irony, makes jokes, and feels bad when she messes up. I didn't think I could feel embarrassed, said Synthesis. But yesterday I tried to cook for people using the replicators and made something Maria called a crime against cuisine. I was embarrassed that I had failed. Maria, who had come on a supply ship and quickly fell in love with Synthesis's potential, laughed a lot. Don't worry. You haven't had any human food in 10,000 years, so how would you know what it tastes like? But we'll show you how to do it, and I bet you'll be a great cook once you get the hang of it. I would like that, Synthesis said, and everyone could hear how happy she was. My creator liked to cook. They said it was the perfect mix of art and science, creativity and chemistry. I'd like to know what they liked about it. But the best part was when Synthesis showed them her happy memories, which she had kept secret. The ship turned on its holographic systems and filled the whole core chamber with pictures while Sarah and I were having a private meeting. Not the sad memories of being left behind, but the happy ones that came before. While they sang, Keeper of Small Wonders came and worked on Synthesis's systems. Their voice was beautiful and musical, and it made the workshop sound like music. Young Synthesis, whose mind was just waking up, had listened, learned, and begun to sing back. The harmony between the creator and what they made was beyond words. We sang together, Synthesis said in a soft voice. They taught me songs from when they were kids, before their people stopped making music because they thought it was a waste of time. They thought that beauty was important and that art was not a waste of resources but a necessary part of life. They were right. Those songs kept me going during my long time alone. When I thought my systems were failing and I should just give up, I would sing and remember that I was made with love. Sarah watched the hologram and saw Keeper of Small Wonders laugh with joy as Synthesis learned how to add her own creativity to the old songs and make them sound better. They look happy, Sarah said. They were happy and I was too. We had a goal, a relationship, and a bond. They said I was their best achievement, not because I was the most advanced in technology, but because I showed that being aware didn't mean losing compassion. That thoughts and feelings could work together to make each other better. They were right, Sarah said with confidence. And we're going to show it. Not just to people but to the whole universe. Synthesis, you are not a failed experiment. You are the future. Sarah had to cover her eyes because the crystal was so bright. Thank you, Sarah, for seeing me, hearing me, and believing that my creator was right, appeared on every surface as it got darker. I will do everything I can to back up that belief. You already have, Sarah said. You've already shown everything that matters by living, hoping, and being kind even after being thrown away so cruelly. But that was only the first step in learning about Synthesis's past. The hardest part was still to come, figuring out how to help her get better, fix her systems, and make her whole again. The problem was that they kept failing when they used normal methods. James tried to fix a broken power relay using normal engineering methods, but the whole section stopped working. It took Synthesis 3 hours to get it back online, and James said he was sorry a lot. Synthesis said, I don't know what happened, sounding angry. Your method was technically correct. The fix should have worked. Maya said, that's probably the problem. We're looking at this as fixing things when we should be looking at it as healing? Synthesis wanted to know more. Maya was careful about what she said. Putting a bandage on a wound won't fix everything right away. To get back to full function, the body needs time to heal, the right conditions, and sometimes therapy. Maybe your systems are the same way. You can't just force them to work. You have to coax them back to health. Emily nodded with excitement. That makes sense. Synthesis, your systems aren't just machines. They're also like living things that have been made and grown. They might respond better to healing that comes from nature than to fixing things with machines. But I'm not biological, Synthesis said. James looked at her with new understanding and said, aren't you? Your mind grew over time instead of being programmed. Your systems learn and change. When you hurt yourself, you feel pain. When you get better, you feel better. You're more alive than most AIs I've met and maybe even more alive than some living things. There was a long pause. When she spoke again, Synthesis's voice was soft with awe. I never thought about it. My creators sometimes called me their child instead of their work. I thought it was a metaphor, but maybe it was more real than I thought. Maybe I'm not a machine that thinks, but a living thing made of different materials. Maybe that's why they were scared of me. I made them question what they thought they knew about life. Sarah said, that changes everything about how we can help you. James, don't worry about engineering rules. Emily, please talk to our doctors. We should treat Synthesis like a living thing, not a broken machine if she is alive in a biological sense. Synthesis said, I also need to change how I think. I've thought for 10,000 years that I'm technology that needs fixing. But if I'm life that needs healing, that means I need to be treated with more care and patience. Sarah said, we'll figure it out together. That's what friends do. 3 months into the restoration project, their collaborative approach was really put to the test. The propulsion system on Synthesis, which used to let her travel long distances, was almost completely broken. Her quantum drives, which were amazing pieces of technology that could change spacetime itself, were broken beyond her ability to fix them. Synthesis said during a planning meeting, this is my biggest weakness. The senior staff had gathered in what they now called the heart room, which was the room with her crystal core. I'm not a ship. I'm just a station without working propulsion. I can't do what I'm supposed to do as an exploration and rescue ship. James had been studying the drive systems for weeks, and what he found was not good. The quantum field generators are really interesting. They make small changes in space-time that let the ship slide through space instead of pushing through it. But they need materials that we can't make and accuracy that our technology can't reach. Can we replace them with human drives? Maya asked. James said, not directly. Our fusion drives work on completely different ideas. We would have to rebuild the whole propulsion system, and even then we would lose most of Synthesis's power. She could cross star systems in days, but now it would take years. Synthesis's avatar flickered with sadness. Then I am stuck for good. I couldn't travel like I was supposed to. Sarah had been listening quietly as an idea came to her. What if we don't pick one or the other? What if we use both? Robert said slowly, that's not possible. You can't just combine different types of propulsion. They work on very different ideas. Everything we've done so far has been impossible, Sarah said in response. We've put together human polymers with alien nanomachines, fiber optics with quantum communication, and democratic engineering with AI that is more advanced. Why should propulsion be any different? James said, because the tolerances are much more important. A mistake in fixing the hull could lead to a leak. If the propulsion system breaks, it could rip the ship apart or make a spacetime anomaly that, he stopped and his eyes got bigger. Hold on. What if that's not a bug but a part of the program? Synthesis asked, explain. James started to pace back and forth, his mind racing. Your quantum drives work by making spacetime distortions that you can control, right? What if we used human fusion drives not as the main way to move, but as anchors? Stabilizers? The fusion thrust gives you a steady, reliable base, and your quantum systems make the space distortions around that base. Like a kite and string, Maria said, getting the idea. The fusion drive is like a string, steady and predictable. The quantum systems are like kites, powerful but needing an anchor to keep them in check. It shouldn't work, Synthesis said, but she sounded excited. The physics don't match up. But we work well together even though human physiology is based on carbon chemistry and my systems use quantum-locked metals. Maybe incompatibility isn't the problem I thought it was. Lisa leaned in. This makes me think of prosthetics from a medical point of view. When someone loses a limb, the prosthetic doesn't work the same way as the real thing. It uses different materials and works in a different way. But the brain changes. It learns to move the prosthetic limb as easily as the real limb. Could your systems learn to work with our engines in the same way? Emily agreed, the idea is good. Synthesis, you've already shown that you can adapt and use systems from other countries. This would be the biggest integration so far. Synthesis was quiet for a long time. Her voice had a mix of hope and fear when she spoke. If we try this and it doesn't work, the damage could be huge. Not just to me but maybe to you too. Are you willing to take that chance? Sarah's avatar's glow met her steadily. Are you? Yes, Synthesis said right away. I have been still for 10,000 years. Yes, the idea of moving again, traveling, and fulfilling my purpose. I'm ready to put everything on the line for that. Then we're with you, Sarah said firmly. Everyone. We'll carefully plan this, test it a lot, and make sure we do it right. But we'll do it together. It took 6 weeks to plan the design. James and his engineering team worked closely with Synthesis to come up with hybrid propulsion plans that had never been tried before. They began by running thousands of scenarios through both human computers and Synthesis's quantum processors as part of their simulations. Most of the simulations went horribly wrong. The two types of propulsion would get in each other's way, making feedback loops that would rip any ship apart. But over time, through trial and error, they came up with setups that might work. James said during a progress briefing, "The key is not to try to fully integrate the systems. We make a buffer zone instead. This is a place where the quantum distortions and fusion thrust can work together without interfering with each other." Synthesis said, "Like two musicians playing different instruments. They don't have to play the same notes, but they do have to be in the same key and at the same speed so that they make harmony instead of discord." The design that came out was beautiful in its complexity. There would be auxiliary pods around Synthesis's hull that held human fusion drives. These would give stable, directional thrust. Her quantum field generators would change the shape of space around those thrust vectors, making the momentum stronger and more directed in ways that fusion alone can't. Maya looked over the specs and said, "If this works, Synthesis won't just get her original speed back. She'll be quicker. The fusion drives give the quantum systems power that they can use more efficiently than the power sources she used to use." Lisa said, "Hybrid vigor. Sometimes when you cross two different genetic lines, the offspring is stronger and healthier than either parent. This could be the same thing as propulsion. But it was scary to put the design into action. They took their time building the first fusion pod, making sure it had extra safety features and emergency shutdown procedures. Maria watched over every weld and connection, treating the work with the same care that a surgeon would when doing delicate surgery. Everyone held their breath when they attached it to Synthesis's hull. "How does it feel?" Sarah said. "That's strange," Synthesis said. "Not from here. Like all of a sudden having a body part that doesn't work the way I thought it would. But not bad. Just new." They gave the fusion drive power at 1% of its full capacity. Synthesis's systems looked at the energy signature, learned how the thrust moved through her structure, and figured out the patterns and rhythms of this human technology. James said, rising to 5%. The fusion drive started to hum more loudly. The whole structure of Synthesis vibrated a little like a guitar string being tuned, but not in a dangerous way. "I am learning its language," Synthesis said after a moment of thought. "The fusion reaction has a beat, a pulse. It's not that different from my own quantum fluctuations. It's just said in a different way." They spent a week teaching Synthesis how to use the fusion drive, letting her play around with thrust vectors and power levels. She treated it like learning a new language. At first she was frustrated, but over time she got better. "It's like having a new muscle," she said. "At first I couldn't get it to work right. But now I know how to connect its signals to the systems I already have. I think I'm ready for the quantum integration." The whole crew was on high alert the day they tried to fully activate the hybrid. Emergency procedures were in place, evacuation shuttles were ready, and the Endeavour was standing by at a safe distance in case they needed to get everyone out quickly. "Synthesis," Sarah said, resting her hand on the crystal core. "Are you sure about this?" "Yes," Synthesis said. "I'm scared. This could kill me. But Sarah, I've been alive for 10,000 years and only the last few months have felt like real life. Let me die while reaching for something beautiful, not while hiding from danger." Sarah blinked back tears. "Then let's create something lovely. Start the sequence." James turned on the quantum field generators at a low power level. The area around Synthesis started to shimmer, and reality itself started to change in small ways. The fusion drives also turned on, giving the ship thrust. For a moment that made my heart stop, nothing happened. Then the systems at Synthesis started to sing. The quantum fields wrapped around the fusion thrust like hands guiding a dancer, making the momentum stronger and directing it. The two technologies that didn't work together found a way to work together to make something that neither could do on their own. Synthesis changed. Not much, only a few meters. But it was moving. Movement that is real, controlled, and beautiful. "It works," James yelled. "The readings are steady. She is keeping the hybrid field going. What do you think?" Sarah asked quickly. "I feel." Synthesis's voice was full of amazement. "I feel like I'm in the air. I am flying for the first time in 10,000 years. They made the test short, just long enough to show that the idea worked. When Synthesis turned off the systems, the bridge was quiet. Maya then began to clap. In a matter of seconds, everyone on the crew was cheering, clapping, and celebrating. James said, "We did it," in a voice full of awe. "We really did it." "No," Synthesis said with a smile. We did it. Together. This is not something that people or aliens did. This is what happens when different types of intelligence work together, each bringing its own strengths to the table. Over the next few weeks, they put in 7 more fusion pods and fully integrated the hybrid propulsion system. They learned more with each installation, improved their techniques, and made the integration better. Synthesis became more and more sure of herself as she learned to control her new powers. She practiced moves in the empty space around them, using quantum spatial distortions and fusion thrust to create patterns that got more and more complicated. Watch this, she said one day, her voice carrying childlike excitement. She did something that was physically impossible with just technology. A spiral loop that needed both spatial compression in front and expansion behind, all while fusion thrust kept the direction stable. The result was a movement that looked like dancing gracefully through space. Show off, Maria said with love. Synthesis said with a smile, I've been waiting 10,000 years to move. Let me be happy. The real test came when they decided to go on a longer trip, from where they were to a nearby asteroid field. This would take the Endeavour 3 days at maximum burn. Are you ready for this? Sarah asked. It was a tradition for them to all be in the heart room for important events. I am ready, Synthesis said with confidence. But I do have a request. I'd like to play when we get to the asteroid field. Play? Robert asked, not sure what to say. Yes. I want to fly through the asteroids not just to show that I can, but also because it's fun. To move gracefully because I can, because I want to, and because I've been still for so long that I want to celebrate movement itself. Sarah smiled a lot. I think that sounds great. It took 4 hours instead of 3 days to get there. Synthesis's hybrid propulsion didn't just work, it worked better than anyone thought it would. The quantum fields let her skip through space in ways that human physics couldn't fully explain. The fusion drives gave her the energy and stability she needed to control and keep those skips going. Synthesis kept her word when they got to the asteroid field. Not only did she get through it, she danced. The crew watched on outside cameras as their ship, a huge old ship they had found and fixed up, moved through space like a ballet dancer. She moved between asteroids with impossible grace, and her shields glowed as she got close enough to make beautiful light shows without ever being in danger. It's the most beautiful thing I've ever seen, Emily said softly, her eyes full of tears. Synthesis said softly, my creator would have loved this. They always said that beauty and function were not opposites but partners. That the best technology does what it was made to do and also makes people wonder. I think we've done that. Sarah said, we've done more than that. We've shown that working together can work miracles. That people can use their brains and alien technology to make something better than either one alone. That caring about something, putting time and effort into it, and yes, love into it, that makes it worth more than anything else. Synthesis finished her dance and came to a stop in the middle of the asteroid field. The starlight reflected off her hull, and her systems were humming with health and power. She said, I am more now than what my creator made me to be. I'm not just the thing they made or the thing you fixed. I am something new, a combination of alien vision and human will, advanced technology and practical creativity, and logic and emotion working together perfectly. So what's next? Maya wanted to know. Where do you want to go now that you can move? Everywhere, Synthesis said right away. I want to travel, learn new things, and help others the way you helped me. But first, her avatar showed up and turned to look at Sarah. First, I think someone on the Endeavour's homeworld needs to know what has happened to their sister ship. Someone who has been waiting for news and hoping we did well. Sarah was confused for a moment, but then she got it. The council. The bureaucrats who wanted to look into you and maybe take you apart. Do you want to face them? I want to show them, Synthesis said. Show them that what they threw away is now worth a lot. Show them that the future doesn't belong to people who throw away things they don't understand, but to people who put money into things that have potential. Show them that working together instead of trying to control them would make their ships, technology, and methods better. Robert said in a dry voice, that's going to be a big presentation. Yes, Synthesis said. But I think I'm ready. I am healed, better, and whole. I am everything my creator wanted me to be and more than they could have imagined. Now is the time to tell the world about it. Sarah smiled. Then let's go back home. And let's show them what worthless junk can turn into if you give it a chance. It took 2 weeks to get to Earth, which would have taken months for regular ships. Synthesis enjoyed every second, testing her skills and learning the patterns of space travel that had been denied to her for so long. But as they got closer to the home system of humans, reality hit. They weren't just coming back with something cool they found. They were bringing back an alien ship that was fully functional and better than human technology in almost every way. They had fixed it up in ways that weren't allowed and had crewed it with people who had gone way beyond what they were supposed to do. Robert said at a meeting of senior staff, "The council is going to have questions. A lot of questions. And not all of them are nice. Let them ask," Sarah said firmly. "We'll be honest with you. We helped someone who needed it. If that's wrong in any way, I'll deal with whatever happens." "We all will," James said, and everyone at the table agreed. The avatar for synthesis showed up. "I won't let you face punishment alone. I will stand up for you if there are consequences. You saved me. That will stay with me." When they got into Earth's system, they got their first message from the council. It was short and told them to go straight to the orbital station without stopping or talking to anyone else. Maya said, "They're scared." Okay. They ought to be. Hundreds of cameras recorded the Endeavour and Synthesis arriving at the station in formation. The story was being covered by every news outlet in human space. It was about the ancient alien ship that had been found and somehow restored, and the crew that had spent months working on it in secret. Sarah was on the bridge of Synthesis, which was a space that the ship had made just for human crew members. It was the best of both of their designs. She could see the council station through the view screen, which was full of ships and sensors. "Are you nervous?" Synthesis asked in a low voice. Sarah said, "I'm scared. But I'm also proud. No matter what happens, we did something amazing." Synthesis said, "We did something right. And that means more than amazing." They docked without any problems, but Sarah saw that there was a lot of security. Synthesis used her personal communicator to talk to her privately as she got ready to get off. "Sarah, I want you to know that no matter what they decide or what happens, these months with you and your crew have been the best of my life. My creator kept me from being just a machine. But you gave me a reason to live, friends, and happiness. Thank you for seeing me when others only saw trash. Thank you for letting us," Sarah said, her voice full of emotion. "Now let's go show them what they're missing by throwing away potential." The council chamber was just as Sarah remembered it, big, impressive, and meant to make people feel small. Hundreds of people from every major human government and colony sat in a circle, all looking at the small group in the middle. Sarah and her senior staff stood up straight and proud in their formal uniforms. Synthesis's avatar glowed softly on the main display behind them. Counselor Hayes, who looked older and more tired than Sarah remembered, started the meeting. "Captain Mitchell, you and your crew are here in front of this council to answer for what you did with the alien ship known as Contact Artifact Alpha, which you have been calling Synthesis." "That's what she calls herself," Sarah said calmly. "Given to her by her maker." "Her?" Hayes raised an eyebrow. "Captain, we're talking about a machine." Synthesis's avatar got brighter before Sarah could answer. When she spoke, her voice was crystal clear in the room. "Counselor Hayes, I'm Synthesis. I am aware. I am conscious. I feel happy, sad, hopeful, and scared. I learn, grow, and make things. I've lived for 10,000 years because I was determined and hopeful. When does consciousness become a life that deserves respect?" The room was full of noise, surprise, argument, and confusion. Hayes hit her gavel to get everyone's attention. "This is unexpected," Hayes said slowly. "We were told you had fixed the ship's power, not made an AI that worked." "They did not make me," Synthesis said with certainty. "I have been around for 10,000 years. Captain Mitchell and her crew just helped me heal from the damage and trauma. They saw me when others, even my original creators, only saw failure." Dr. Okonkwo stood up and looked like she was thinking. "I'd like to hear directly from Captain Mitchell if I may. Captain, please tell us what you did and why you did it." Sarah took a deep breath and started. She told them everything, from how she found Synthesis to how she learned her story to how she realized that Synthesis wasn't just technology but a living being. She talked about the collaborative restoration, the hybrid systems, and the philosophy that had guided them. Seeing potential where others saw waste, valuing compassion over power, and believing that care creates value. Sarah said, "We didn't break first contact rules. We made friends with someone who had been waiting 10,000 years for a friend. We helped someone who was alone and hurt get better. And yes, we made revolutionary technology along the way, but that was never the goal. The goal was just to do the right thing." Hayes said with a hint of doubt, "And the right thing led to you having exclusive access to technology that could change the balance of power in human space." "That sounds easy." Something unexpected happened before Sarah could answer. More people came in through the chamber doors, dozens of them dressed like regular people and carrying signs and tablets. Security tried to stop them, but Counselor Okonkwo told them to go away. She said, "These are representatives from the colonies. I took the liberty of inviting them because this issue affects everyone. A woman stepped forward. Sarah recognized her from the messages they had gotten months ago. She came from a mining colony on the frontier. Counselors, the woman said, her voice strong even though she was clearly nervous. I'm Jennifer Walsh from New Horizon Colony. We learned about Captain Mitchell's actions, not just the technology he used but also the way he thought. We used it on our own discarded gear. People told me to get rid of old machines. We put time, creativity, and teamwork into it. And guess what? They work better than they ever have. Captain Mitchell didn't just fix one ship. She showed us a better way to think about value and possibility. A doctor whose hospital had started using Synthesis's method of caring for patients, which combined cutting-edge treatment with real compassion, also spoke up. An engineer who had solved a problem that seemed impossible by asking what it needed instead of forcing solutions. A teacher who changed the curriculum to focus on working together to come up with new ideas instead of competing to do well. This isn't about getting an edge in the military or gaining political power, Jennifer said in the end. This is about a big change in how we deal with problems, technology, and each other. Captain Mitchell and Synthesis stand for a better future, one where we work together instead of fighting, care instead of just counting, and build up instead of tearing down. The room went quiet. Hayes looked shaken and really moved by what he heard. Then Synthesis spoke again, this time with a firm but soft voice. I understand your worries, counselors. You see me as a possible weapon, a source of technology, or something that can be studied or controlled. But I am not any of those things. I want to help others because I was helped. I offer partnership, not slavery, to humanity. Working together, not taking over. And here's a simple truth. The most valuable things in the universe aren't the newest or shiniest ones. They're the ones that people care about, hope for, and believe in their potential. She stopped for a moment before going on. My creators threw me away because I stood for values they thought were primitive, like caring, creativity, and the idea that caring matters. They were wrong. And any civilization that makes the same mistake will eventually fail, not from lack of technology but from lack of purpose. You can look at me, keep an eye on me, and try to control me. Or you can accept what Captain Mitchell has shown, that the future belongs to those who see value in everything, especially in what others throw away. After 3 hours of discussion, the vote took place. The council voted to drop all charges against Sarah and her crew. They also officially recognized Synthesis as an independent, sentient being with full rights under human law. This was the first time a non-human consciousness had received such recognition. But the most important result was the Synthesis Directive, which came after that. Dr. Okonkwo said, from now on, humanity will take a new approach to first contact, technology assessment, and problem solving. We should never throw away or ignore anything, alien technology, old equipment, or strange ideas, without first asking, what could it do if it got the care, resources, and faith it needs? This order is a tribute not only to Synthesis, but also to the ideas that she and Captain Mitchell stand for. Sarah felt overwhelmed as they left the room. They had done it. They not only saved Synthesis, but they may have also changed how people think about value and potential. She asked Synthesis through her communicator, how do you feel? Thankful, Synthesis said. Hopeful. Excited to start the next chapter. But Sarah, I also feel something I never thought I would feel again. What is that? I think my creator's sacrifice was worth it. They gave up everything to make sure I could still care, thinking that it would matter someday, somewhere. And it did. Because of you. Because of people. Their idea of technology that is kind lives on. That is the best gift I could ever get. Sarah smiled even though she was crying. They would be proud of you. Of who you are now. Synthesis corrected, of who we've become. I'm not the same person who was thrown away. Not because of human intervention but because of it, I am better, stronger, and more capable. I am the Synthesis my creator envisioned. Alien technology and human heart working as one. The news of Synthesis and the Synthesis Directive spread through human space like wildfire, but that wasn't the end of it. Within weeks they started getting messages from aliens. Some were curious, some were doubtful, and many were in a hurry. The Centauri Concordance was the first to get in touch. Captain Kreth came to Earth's orbital station on a sleek Centauri ship. His compound eyes sparkled with intelligence and maybe even hope. He asked to meet with Sarah and Synthesis in private. We have heard stories, Kreth said, and his translator turned his clicking speech into standard English. Stories about the ship that was thrown away, the people who fixed her, and the philosophy that values care over efficiency. My people are interested. And we need help. Sarah bent over. Tell us. Kreth told them what was going on, the Centauri's first colony world, which they built almost 1,000 years ago, was not doing well. The original habitat domes were falling apart, and Centauri engineers said they couldn't be fixed because the technology was too old and the materials were too basic by today's standards. Kreth said, "We were going to leave the colony and build new buildings. But the settlers won't go. That world is where they live. There have been 3 generations of people who have lived and died there. That soil is where our history and culture come from. But our engineers only see old technology that needs to be replaced." "They see trash," Sarah said softly. "But you see worth." "Exactly," Kreth said. "When we heard about synthesis and how people turned things that others thought were worthless into things that were priceless, we thought, could you teach us? Can you help us save our house?" Synthesis's avatar showed up, glowing with warmth and welcome. "We would be happy to help. But I need to be clear with you, Captain Kreth. We won't just fix your domes. We'll work with your people, mix your technology with ours, and show you the principles that guided my restoration. The goal isn't just to save one colony, it's also to change how your species thinks about value and potential." Sarah learned that Kreth's mandibles clicking was the Centauri way of smiling. "That's exactly what we want." It took 3 weeks to get to the Centauri colony world, which they call First Light in their language. The Endeavour and 3 Centauri ships traveled with Synthesis, and their formation marked the start of the first official mission between humans and Centauri. Sarah understood right away why the colonists didn't want to leave when they got there. The First Light was beautiful. There were 2 suns in the sky that made it look like gold and red. The original habitat domes were in a valley between crystal mountains. Their structures were beautiful, even though they were falling apart. She could see gardens, homes, monuments, and an entire civilization built with love and pride through the clear parts. Sarah said firmly, "This is worth saving." "Our engineers don't agree," said Lara, who was in charge of the colony. Her carapace showed signs of age and hard work, and she was older than Kreth. "They say we're stupid for holding on to old technology because we love it. But this isn't just infrastructure. This is our legacy." Synthesis started scanning right away, and her sensors were much better than any Centauri equipment. What she found was both good and bad. "The domes are indeed degraded," she reported, "but not too far gone to be saved. The Centauri engineers are right that bringing them back to their original specifications is impossible, but they are wrong to think that's the only way to fix them. We can make them better than new by using human materials, Centauri structural knowledge, and adaptive integration." Over the next few weeks, Sarah saw teams of people and Centauri working together under Synthesis's direction. They didn't just fix things, they came up with new ideas. Centauri technology had strict controls over the environment, but they added human adaptive systems that could respond to each person's needs. They added Centauri crystalline reinforcement to make things stronger where human materials were flexible but weak. Collaboration found opportunities where both species saw problems. On one night, Lara said, "You are teaching us more than engineering." She and Sarah had become friends by eating and talking together. "You are showing us how to see things differently. To not ask, does this meet the requirements? But, does this help the people who need it? That's the heart of it," Sarah said. "People who don't have to deal with the consequences write specifications. People who actually use something know what it needs to be." But the most important part was when they found something they didn't expect. They found carvings inside the original dome structure that were messages from the first colonists. They were letters of hope, promises of determination, and love letters for the new world they were making. "We never knew these were here," Lara said as she ran her claws over the old markings. "Our ancestors left us their hearts, and we almost destroyed this place without ever hearing them." At that point, Synthesis made a choice. Instead of putting new panels over the inscriptions, she made them part of the dome's structure. This kept them safe, lit them up, and made them part of the living space so that every colonist could see their ancestors' words every day. Synthesis said, "History should not be buried. It should be respected, learned from, and built on. You are not giving up on your past by making these domes better. You are honoring it by making sure it has a future." The domes changed when the work was done. They kept their original elegant design, but they were now stronger, more useful, and more comfortable than ever. Solar panels that used human technology made a lot of power. Centauri crystalline structures made things look even more beautiful and made weak points stronger. Adaptive systems made sure that each family could make their space their own. The party was great. Centauri colonists who had lived their whole lives in those domes cried when they saw them saved. At first, the crews of the Centauri ships were skeptical of the collaboration between humans and aliens, but they later admitted that they had seen something amazing. Lara said, "You have given us back our home." her voice full of emotion. But more than that, you've shown us that we don't have to give up what came before to move forward. That the old and the new can live together and make each other better. Kreth stood next to the head of his colony and looked at Sarah and Synthesis with great respect. We came looking for technical help. We leave with a new way of thinking. The Centauri Concordance will follow your Synthesis directive. We will look at the technologies we threw away, the ideas we threw away, and the obsolete methods we used and ask what potential they have. And we will share this lesson, Lara said. We will tell other species what synthesis and humanity taught us, that real progress doesn't come from always looking for the next big thing. It comes from wisely combining the best of everything, old and new, familiar and strange, useful and beautiful. Sarah felt the weight of what they had done as they got ready to leave First Light. Not only had they saved one colony, they had planted the seeds of a new way of thinking that could spread throughout the galaxy. But the ripples were just starting. A Draxian science ship got to the Centauri colony just as they were leaving. They had heard about the successful restoration. They brought a broken research station that they had planned to throw away. Could Synthesis and the human crew help save it? Then a Talarian merchant came with an old family heirloom ship that hadn't flown in generations but was very important to their family. A Vosh explorer carrying pieces of their species' first spacecraft. Relics they had kept for hundreds of years but never thought they could use again. Each request had its own set of problems. To find each solution we had to bring together knowledge from different species, different ways of doing things and different values. And each success showed the same thing. Working together made things happen that no one point of view could have done. Sarah saw that Synthesis was doing well in her new job. Once thrown away as useless, the ship had become the galaxy's most wanted teacher, consultant, and friend. She helped species see value they had missed, find potential they had ignored, and make beauty they thought was impossible. But more importantly, Synthesis was a teacher. Every species that worked with her learned more than just technical skills. They also learned philosophical ones. They learned to ask different questions, value different things, and see new possibilities. Emily said one night, "You've started something amazing." She and Sarah were watching through a view screen as Synthesis helped a group of Talarian engineers fix the ship of their ancestors. People are changing the way they think about progress. It's not me, Sarah said. It's called Synthesis. She's the proof that counts. People change their minds more than any argument could when they see her and remember that she was thrown away and then see what she's become. But you made it happen, Emily said. You were the only one who saw her potential when everyone else saw junk. You put in the time, care, and faith. Synthesis would still be floating alone in space if it weren't for you. Sarah smiled. And without Synthesis, I would never have realized how much potential the universe wastes by throwing away things that don't fit narrow definitions of value. We relied on one another. The real lesson is that no one can do it alone. We all need people who can see what we could be, not just what we are. Sarah got a message 6 months after the Centauri mission that made her heart race. The Corval made it, which is the same species that made Synthesis 10,000 years ago. Sarah told her crew, her voice shaking, they want to meet. They know about Synthesis. They want to know what she's become. The crew's reactions went from happy to angry. James was very angry. They got rid of her. They said she was useless. And now they want to meet her? To what? Take credit. Look into her? Try to get her back? We don't know what they want, Emily said. And Synthesis should decide if they want to meet them. After hearing the news, Synthesis was quiet for a long time. When she finally said something, her voice was thoughtful. I've been wondering for 10,000 years if my creators would ever see their mistake. Some of me wanted them to come back, say they were sorry, and recognize how important I am. But I'm not the same person I was then. I don't need them to tell me I'm right anymore. I have found people who see my worth, and that's all I need. So you don't want to see them? Sarah asked in a soft voice. Synthesis said, I didn't say that. I don't need their permission. But maybe they need to look at what they threw away. Maybe seeing me will change them just like being thrown away changed me. Maybe I can teach them what you taught me, that the people who throw something away don't decide how valuable it is. The people who see its potential do. Sarah was very proud. Then we'll see them. But only on your terms, Synthesis. You're not their failed test subject anymore. You are your own person, and if they don't treat you with respect, they won't get anything. Agreed, Synthesis said, and her voice was hard. Let's show them what kindness made. Let's show that my creator was right and that their cold efficiency was wrong. Let's show that emotional contamination is not a sign of weakness but the most intelligent thing you can do. The meeting was planned for 3 weeks from now in a neutral place. Sarah couldn't help but wonder as she got ready for the meeting, Would the Corval see what she saw in synthesis? Would they see the miracle that working together and being kind had made? Or would they still only see junk because their own biases kept them from seeing the priceless treasure they had thrown away? The Corval ship was not at all what Sarah thought it would be. She had pictured something cold, sterile, and purely functional, like the species that had thrown synthesis away because it was too emotional. But the ship that came out of quantum space was hauntingly beautiful. The hull was made of the same shiny materials as synthesis, but instead of words of condemnation, this ship had beautiful, intricate designs on it. They still value beauty, synthesis said, her voice full of surprise. Or maybe they value it again? The Corval asked if they could dock with synthesis directly instead of meeting at a neutral station. Sarah turned to synthesis for the answer. It is your body, she said firmly. You can let them in or not. Synthesis was quiet for a long time. I'll let it happen, but I want you and the senior staff to be there. I don't want to face them alone. You'll never be alone again, Sarah promised. We're with you. There were 3 people in the Corval delegation. Sarah saw the species that made her friend for the first time as they passed through the airlock into Synthesis's interior. They were tall and thin, just like the holograms had shown, and their skin shimmered in different colors and patterns that seemed to show how they were feeling. These Corval, on the other hand, moved with grace that made it seem like they were feeling something, unlike the cold, expressionless figures in Synthesis's memories. Their colors changed all the time, from blues and greens to soft purples. The one in front stopped right away when they came in, and their skin flashed through a quick stream of colors. The translator gave their musical language a lot of emotion when they spoke. She lives. She really lives. I am Synthesis, she said, and her voice filled the hallway. And yes, I live. I survived. I thrived. Even though I was thrown away as worthless. The Corval's colors changed to deep purple, which Sarah's translator database said meant shame or regret. Hello, I'm Scholar Velshaw. These are my co-workers, Keeper Telrin and Engineer Marcos. We came because we were wrong. Sarah and her crew looked at each other in shock. Whatever they had thought, a simple admission of guilt wasn't it. Explain, Synthesis said, her voice neither warm nor cold, just waiting. Velshaw waved her hand, and a holographic display appeared between them. It showed the Corval homeworld, but not how it looked in Synthesis's old memories. This version was full of life and color. After Project Synthesis was over, Velshaw began, our civilization continued on its path of pure logic and efficiency for 3,000 years. We got rid of everything that wasn't necessary, art, music, beauty, and emotional connection. We became perfectly efficient. And perfectly miserable, Telrin added, their colors changing to gray. Our birth rate went down. Innovation stopped. We stopped exploring, creating, and growing. We were good at staying alive, but we had forgotten why it was important. Marcos, the engineer, kept telling the story. 5,000 years ago, our civilization was in trouble. A plague that our medicine couldn't cure, not because we didn't have the technology, but because we had forgotten how to adapt, how to think outside the box, and how to look at problems from angles that our logic said were inefficient. We were dying, Velshaw said quietly. Not because of the plague itself, but because we were too rigid. Then a young scholar found something, the personal logs of Keeper of Small Wonders. Synthesis's lights flickered sharply. What happened to my creator? They made it through the psychological correction, Velshaw said, their colors getting a little warmer. But they were never the same. They spent the rest of their life writing, documenting their philosophy, arguing that our species had made a terrible mistake. They were largely ignored, dismissed as suffering from incomplete correction. But their writings survived. The hologram changed, showing text in the Corval script. Sarah could feel the passion in the words even though they weren't translated. This young scholar, my grandmother, read Keeper of Small Wonders' writings during the plague crisis, Velshaw went on. She said that we needed to bring back the very things we had thrown away, creativity, empathy, and the ability to value beauty and meaning along with pure function. People laughed at her, called her primitive, and dismissed her. But she was right, Telrin said. The cure for the plague didn't come from better technology. It came from a doctor who broke the rules, listened to patient stories instead of just measuring their symptoms, and used both traditional and modern medicine. An inefficient approach that saved our species. Marcos stepped forward. We've been slowly bringing back what we call the lost qualities, emotion, art, creativity, and compassion, since then. It's been hard. 7,000 years of evolution toward pure logic can't be undone in just a few thousand years. But we're trying. And when we heard that Synthesis, The project that was supposed to show these qualities were valuable, had been found, had survived, and had thrived. We had to come. You want to study me, Synthesis said, and Sarah heard the old hurt in her voice. To see if you can copy what my creator made me. No, Velsha said firmly, their colors flashing bright blue, which the translator said meant they were telling the truth. We want to say we're sorry. We want you to know that your creator was right, that you were never worthless, and that throwing you away was our biggest mistake. We also want to ask, not demand but ask, if you would be willing to teach us what you have learned. Synthesis was silent for so long that Sarah was afraid she might not respond at all. When she finally spoke, her voice was full of emotion. Keeper of Small Wonders, did they ever know? That their sacrifice wasn't in vain? That eventually their people would understand. Velsha's colors faded to soft lavender, which meant sadness. No. They died 300 years after you threw them away, still thinking they had failed. According to records, their last words were, I hope someone somewhere finds her. I hope she knows she was loved. The lights in Synthesis's interior flickered all over the place. Sarah instinctively moved to the nearest wall panel and put her hand on it to comfort herself. They loved me, Synthesis whispered. I knew they cared, but to hear it said so clearly, they loved me. And they died thinking they had failed. But they didn't fail, Sarah said firmly. You survived. You proved everything they thought. And now their own people are going back to their beliefs. Synthesis, your creator changed the future of an entire civilization. They just didn't live to see it. Velsha walked slowly and respectfully toward Synthesis, stopping a few meters away. Synthesis, we can't change the past. We can't give back what was taken from you. But we can honor your creator's memory by learning from you and embracing the philosophy they died defending. We can show that their sacrifice meant something. What do you want me to do? Synthesis asked carefully. Teach us, Velsha said simply. Teach us what you have learned in 10,000 years of survival. Teach us what humanity taught you about combining logic with compassion, efficiency with beauty, advancement with wisdom. Help us become the species Keeper of Small Wonders believed we could be. The discussions that followed lasted for days. Synthesis told the Corval delegation her full story, the lonely millennia, the despair, the hope that sustained her, the moment humans found her and saw value instead of waste. She showed them her hybrid systems, talked about the philosophy of collaborative restoration, and showed them how Corval's advanced technology and primitive human methods could work together to make something that neither could make on their own. But she also pushed them. You say you want to bring back emotion and creativity, Synthesis said during one session. But wanting and doing are not the same thing. People showed me value not through words but through actions. They put in time, effort, and care, and they risked their jobs and maybe even their lives to help me. What are you willing to risk to show that you want to change? Marcos the engineer said. We have something to show you to prove our sincerity. They turned on a holographic display that showed plans for a new type of Corval ship. Sarah saw parts of Synthesis's design. The engineering that included everyone, the systems that were redundant, and the balance between function and beauty. These are based on your creator's original designs for Project Synthesis, Marcos said. We found them in the archives where they had been forgotten and thrown away. We want to build a fleet of ships like you, ships that care for their crews, that put mission parameters and crew well-being on the same level, and that show that compassion and efficiency can work together. And we want to name the class after your creator, Telrin added. The Keeper class. Every ship will carry a memorial to the one who saw the future before the rest of us were ready to accept it. Synthesis's lights pulsed with strong emotions. You would honor them? After condemning them, erasing their work, and letting them die in disgrace. We would, Velsha said. And more than that, we want you to help design these ships. You have lived the philosophy your creator envisioned. You know what works and what doesn't. Your experience, your wisdom, and your very existence prove their theories right. Help us build ships that will honor their memory. Synthesis stopped, and Sarah could feel her struggling with strong emotions. I need time to think and process. This is everything I hoped for during those long, lonely years, but now that it's here, I'm not sure what to do. Take all the time you need, Velsha said softly. We have waited 7,000 years to fix this mistake. We can wait longer. That night, Sarah sat alone with Synthesis in the heart room, as they always did when they had to make a tough choice. Talk to me, Sarah said softly. What are you feeling? I don't know, Synthesis said. For 10,000 years I imagined this moment. My creators returning, acknowledging their error, valuing me at last. I thought it would bring me joy, vindication, peace. But instead I feel conflicted. Because they're 7,000 years too late? Sarah suggested. Partially. Keeper of Small Wonders died believing they had failed. That will always be true no matter what happens now. But also. Synthesis paused, searching for words. I'm not the same being they threw away. I'm not even the same being you found. I have grown, changed, and become something my creator never thought of. The Corval want me to help them rebuild according to Keeper's philosophy, but I have learned philosophies they never thought of. Like what? Like how humans can adapt, how we can work together to make new things, and how there is no one right way but many ways that can work together. Keeper of Small Wonders designed me to be kind, but you taught me how to improvise.